I would be a much tougher candidate.
You seem pretty comfortable out there debating. Is that your...
Oh, I'm very comfortable out there.
You like that? I think one of the more interesting lines of the night, I don't think Ron Paul particularly liked it, and that is that you kill America's enemies.
Well, I think that's true. I mean, the instinct of the American people is to say, you're going to come to New York City and kill 3,100 Americans, and you want us to go through some legal mumbo-jumbo if we can kill you? Legal mumbo-jumbo with legal mumbo-jumbo with legal mumbo-jumbo with... Give me a break. I think we want a country that's safe because our enemies respect us and fear us. We don't want a country so locked up in lawyers that we're getting attacked all the time.
All right, Mr. Speaker, good to see you.
Great to meet you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
And Frank Luntz gave you a lot of credit tonight for the first standing ovation in the debate. So
That's amazing.
I bet you're pretty happy. And coming up next, former Pennsylvania Senator Rick Santorum. He's here as we continue live from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. That plus analysis from Juan Williams, Dick Morris, and much, much more straight ahead.
This is something that is an intellectual fight. It's an intellectual. We have to know what we want. We have to be convinced that freedom works. We have to be convinced that we cannot depend on others and we don't have any right to tell other people what to do. And if we did that, if we used that golden rule on interpersonal relationship, we ought to know how to use the golden rule on international relationship. If we don't want other countries doing anything to us, we shouldn't do it to them either.
I've been blinded by it as well as by the darkness, but now that I'm awake, grab your lighters and let's spark this debate for the fate of our nation and lives. This stuff is important to both left and right sides, so vote for the guy who's been consistent and strong, the defender of freedom who's been right all along. His name is Ron Paul. This here's my endorsement. It may not mean much, but together we're flawless, unstoppable, unless they rig the election, which they probably will. And shit's gonna get hectic, but they can't stop a landslide, whatever they do. And he can win by a landslide if his message gets through. It's a message of hope for a peaceful tomorrow, and a message of joy for our world full of sorrow. So do the right thing, please vote with your heart, and be a true hero to this country.
They're the heroes of mine in practice of civil disobedience to try to get the burden of government on our backs, and that's why I'm the one that protects the individual blacks who are in the city who are so unfairly being treated and thrown in prison. That's the message that needs to be heard, and I'd appreciate somebody helping bring that up rather than nitpicking over something done many years ago.
Ron Paul, victory coming soon. If you stand with the man who's been fighting for you, he's been called an old loon just for telling the truth. He's been blacked out, smeared, ridiculed on the news, but the establishment's scared. Just look at the proof. Ron Paul's the only candidate for the youth, and now that they're dying, it's even more vital. His sayings are scripture, like here in the Bible. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not speak if thou art not real, thou shalt not torture, thou shalt not tax the wage of a man who's been breaking his back, thou shalt not break a constitutional oath, thou shalt not steal the results of a vote, thou shalt not go invading a nation without Congress's vote and a clear mission statement.
We need a strong national defense, and we need to only go to war with a declaration of war.
If our national security is threatened, the evidence is presented to the Congress, I'd ask them for a declaration of war. But then it would be all out. I mean, I would know exactly who the war is going to be declared against and fight the war, win it, and get it over with. But it would be much more precise.
The world's been waking up. We need a revolution. We'd like a peaceful change, and we keep our Constitution. That's why the doctor flew in to fix the sick nation from that death, war, and hyperinflation. He's got a lot of patience, but we haven't got the time. We gotta spread his message, because the media's been lying. They keep saying he can't win, while he's the people's choice. If you read between the headlines, that means we don't have a voice. Damn! Is this the land of the free still, where the one we elect really speaks for the people? Man, or are we just sheeple who go with the flow and don't see their evil? I really don't know if America can make it, but I really do hope we the people will awaken before it's too late. Please answer the call. Elect for president the good Dr. Ron Paul.
This idea that you have to give up so much of your liberties to be safe, that's nonsense. You don't have to give up any liberties to be safe. If you don't have true liberty, the wealth cannot last. It's been decades of bad economic ideas and bad foreign policy and bad monetary policy. That's where the problem is.
He's a man with a plan for the country he loves. Only he understands enough is enough. Enough of the tax, enough of the spending, enough of these wars that are killing reverse this curse and end the Fed. We're in the red and end these wars before we end up dead. Ron Paul, 2012.
Getting into the media attacks, Ron Paul was pretty much in a statistical dead heat. There was only a few hundred votes difference between the so-called frontrunner, Mr. Open Borders, Mr. Abortion, Mr. Obamacare, Mr. Gun Control, Mr. Carbon Tax, Mitt Romney, and then Santorum, who's come from nowhere, and then Congressman Ron Paul. And the exit polls and other data were showing Ron Paul winning handily. The majority of polls showed that, but suddenly it was basically a dead heat, with all of them within 1 point or so of each other. The problem is that I talked to a lot of the people that were at caucuses today on the radio, and this has now come out in some of the mainline press reports in Iowa. It was amazing. You'd have the lights go off when they had all put down their ballots and handed them in when one guy had the sack, like out of an old whodunit movie where the lights go off and they turn back on in a minute and somebody's dead or the Maltese Falcon has been stolen. That was happening. Normally they do just raise their hands and it's publicly tallied. In a lot of precincts they didn't do that. They said you've got to put them on ballots, and then there were trucks that came up missing with 4 or 5 precincts, and we've got all of this broken down. But here's a headline out of the Tribune. One long caucus, one delayed official add up to late results for Story County, one of the key counties that had a whole bunch of precincts involved. But you know what? It doesn't matter. Fox News contributor and the architect of the Bush crime syndicate, Karl Rove, came out and said they had a gentleman's agreement on who really won that county, so you can trust them. And this stuff happened all across Iowa. And of course, Ron Paul doesn't want to challenge it, because then they say, oh, he's being a sorry sport. But clearly, where there's smoke, there's fire, and something is rotten in the state of Denmark. Here is that clip, along with a great graphic we put together of Ron Paul in the lead until Karl Rove comes along with his magic, the same stuff we saw in Florida in 2000 and in Ohio that's now been certified as fraud and as a stolen election. Here's that clip.
Romney is going to win the Iowa caucuses by 14 votes. How solid is your evidence?
From a pretty good, reliable source. They made the correction in Story County, which moved it from an 18-point margin for Santorum to a 4-vote margin for Santorum. Clinton County, they have the one outstanding precinct in the state, and that it will show an 18-vote victory in that precinct for Mitt Romney, which will give him a statewide victory of 14 votes over.
From out of nowhere, it's Rick Santorum. So I don't understand. You're saying that they basically have come to an agreement as to what the vote's going to be in Clinton?
The person who's got the official piece of paper is missing. But the Romney and Santorum people who are monitoring it agree on what the number is. They apparently have rounded up the representatives of the camps who have agreed, yes, we were there, we know exactly what the vote total was, and we both agreed to what it was.
Kind of like it was Karl Rove in 2000 that announced that Bush had won Florida when he hadn't. And I'm no fan of Al Gore, you know that, but they stole that. They stole that. And they've done it again. And again, this is only the tip of the iceberg. It is so frustrating. Here's the Examiner out of Washington. Karl Rove, Romney has won Iowa by 14 votes. And this was hours before all this was confirmed. And you've got all these precincts missing, and then magically, again, how they do it is they flip the lights off, or the votes are disappeared and then more are added and some are taken out, or both. Almost all the scientific polls had Paul winning by huge margins. But then magically he comes in third. Now, granted, it's a statistical dead heat, you know, with a point or so between the three of them, but it happened. And again, it's these key big counties where it happened that pushed them over the edge. Again, we're just showing you county by county numbers right there. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I mean, fool me 100 times. I'm brain dead if I continue to buy this known fraud from known scammers. We'll continue to break this down, but talking to Bev Harris today, who's coming on the show later in the week, the TV show, New Hampshire is where the real fraud goes on, and where they've got those special voting machines. The main company that runs it's run by a convicted felon. So that's the type for fraud, by the way. So that's the type of stuff we're dealing with here. Here's another Kurt Nimmo article. DNC-linked organization attacks Ron Paul. They've got the big rhino groups coming after him, but also the Democratic Governors Association is coming out saying he's dangerous and trying to scare seniors. Hey, what's scary is the mega banks that have already stolen people's public pensions in Europe and who've said they're going to do it here by freezing colas the last 3 years, your cost of living expense. It is your money. You did pay into it. And on top of it, devaluing the dollar. They're already stealing your Social Security. Let me ask you a question. For folks out there that are helping grandma out or helping your parents out or older folks that are watching, you already know your check isn't buying what it did a couple years ago. They cooked the inflation numbers. They cooked the unemployment numbers. I mean, give me a break. So you got that, and then I don't have time to get into it. We had some clips. We'll play them tomorrow night. On his current TV, the guy that wants you to pay him to breathe, he's come out and said Ron Paul's silly and all this other stuff, and have the young turd guy, or the young turds, roping masseuses, tells us we should pay him money to breathe. I mean, sometime this fraud's got to end. Now, speaking of fraud, CNN reportedly finally aired this today, many hours after it was supposedly live yesterday, but we talked to reporters on the ground who've given us good intel in the past that it was a few minutes delayed with Wolf Blitzer. And they had all these other camera people there in the same building, and that this feed was not dead. And then coming up, we got an interview with one of our reporters got with him, with the actual soldier, but they censored it. But here's that quick clip of CNN pulling the plug on the live feed. And one of my producers pointed out today, if you watch the feed after this, you see a line of reporters joking about pulling the feed in the background. You can see them making jokes about the feed being cut.
Somebody who actually did just go vote for Ron Paul, a first-time caucus voter, Corporal Jesse Thorson, who is 28 years old, and you were active duty U.S. Army. Why did you vote for Ron Paul?
Well, I'm really excited about a lot of his ideas, especially when it comes to bringing the soldiers home. I've been serving for 10 years now, and all 10 years of those have been during wartime. I'd like to see a little peacetime army, and I think he has the right idea.
Now, you have done 2 tours in Afghanistan. You told me you're going to go back for a third tour. I mean, you can see your knack right there, what you have on your tattoo, 9/11, remember, and a picture of the Twin Towers. You know, some Republicans out there have been saying that Ron Paul would be very dangerous for this country because he wants to bring troops like you back from your post from all over the world.
Well, I think it would be even more dangerous to start nitpicking wars with other countries. Someone like Iran, Israel is more than capable.
We just lost our tech connection, unfortunately.
I have another speaker.
That's not how a connection cutting out looks. And we had reporters there, multiple reporters that confirmed they had TVs running right there of what was on television versus what was taping. They were a couple minutes behind. So this was taped to air. They were running a giant delay. We see this on C-SPAN when government drug dealing comes up, and then this happens.
West Des Moines, Iowa. What is it about Ron Paul that made you come out here for caucus night tonight?
Well, first and foremost, I've been in the Army for 10 years, and all 10 years of those we've been at war. And he's one of the candidates that want to bring us all home from that war and stop policing the world, and I'm really excited about that. He's just got a lot of good ideas, and I think that he's got the change that can really shake up our country.
Guys, McBall's been talking about bringing not just our troops home from Iraq, Afghanistan, but he's talking about bringing all the troops home from all the foreign bases, all the foreign countries.
I think that we can support our allies from our home front. If we need to go somewhere quickly, we have assets and troops that can do that, and I don't think that scattering us all over the world is going to really make that any more efficient. One of the things is he's a military man himself. Obviously, he served in the Air Force, so that second of all, he doesn't want to cut any of our budget. And then when he does cut budget, it's going to be some of the more frivolous spending that goes on in military spending with government contracts and stuff like that, instead of cutting into the pockets of the soldiers and their families.
The country should be fearful of as someone who served in the war, what are your thoughts when you hear other people in the field, or even pundits on TV mention that Paul's foreign policy is bad for the country?
Well, anyone I hear say that Ron Paul could be a dangerous president, especially someone like Michelle Bachmann saying that, I think that's absolutely ludicrous. She obviously doesn't know what it's like to be on the ground over there, and I think that a war with Iran is a little more dangerous than letting Israel take care of their own problems.